There are an estimated 80,000 people locked up in solitary confinement in America. You're about to meet a prison official who wants to experience it firsthand. He's embarking on a radical, risky experiment, entering level 6 solitary confinement himself, undercover. My Nightline co-anchor Dan Harris brings us this report, No Way Out.
You are looking at prisoner 106, on the books as a dangerous armed robber. He is preparing to enter what many call hell on earth, solitary confinement. Before you meet its residents, just listen to them.
This is prison. You know what I mean? We're not here for being nice.
I've seen guys resort to cutting themselves and killing themselves, you know?
As prisoner 106 is moved into the unit,
I don't know that I have ever felt as vulnerable as I do right now.
the thing almost nobody here knows is that this inmate is actually the Secretary of Corrections for the state of New Mexico, Gregg Marcantel, a former cop who spent a career putting away bad guys. He's now going to try to spend 48 hours living among the worst of the worst. This surveillance footage shows what these men are capable of if they get loose.
This is a public safety issue.
So why is the secretary willing to put himself through this? He's decided he wants to reform the state's use of solitary because most of these inmates will end up right back on our streets.
We're sending people back to our neighborhoods worse than when they came.
As the clock starts running on his 48-hour lockdown, the secretary settles into his 12-by-7 concrete cell. Level 6 is divided up into 3 separate units, housing a total of 282 inmates. In here for crimes ranging from rape to armed robbery to murder. Combined, these men have killed 138 people. In cell 111 is Freddie Munoz.
This is my home right here. For good or bad, this is it.
Growing up, Munoz wanted to be an astronaut, but at age 13, he got caught up in gangs.
How many murders did you commit? 2 murders.
Because of his violent past and his gang affiliation, prison officials have kept him in a cell like this every day for the past 10 years. These 4 walls are all he's got. He knows every crack, every inch of peeling paint.
What does that do to your head?
It is perpetual misery. It's ennui, it's monotony, it's repetition.
He says the only way to keep it together in here is to establish a strict routine, a sort of imitation of life.
I exercise, I read a lot. If I didn't have books, I probably would have already gone insane.
A few cells away, Daniel Herrera. He's also in solitary because of his gang affiliation. He's 23 years old and serving a sentence for kidnapping.
This is where we live. I mean, right here you can see the width of our rooms.
At our request, he shows us one of the tricks of solitary. This is called fishing.
A fishing line to communicate with neighbors and stuff like that. You send it to your neighbor. So that's how we fish and get things from one cell to another in here without getting caught or getting in trouble.
Back in Secretary Marcantel's cell, 9 hours in, he brushes his teeth and gets ready for a long night in a strange and hidden world. Officer Joseph Vishaway makes his morning rounds. It's chow time.
No, sir. Give us some jelly.
When collecting the food trays, Officer Vishaway makes sure nobody has broken off a piece of plastic which could be used to create a weapon.
Is this a dangerous job?
It takes a certain type of person to do it. We're working inside the lion's cage with the lion.
To keep themselves safe, the officers follow rigid protocols. For example, there's a strip search for weapons or contraband every time they take an inmate out to the yard, which is known as the rec cage.
Locked down 23 hours a day, sitting reminiscing on how my life was stripped away.
And coming back is equally coordinated.
Just bringing this inmate from the rec pen into his unit, there's a choreography. Inmates get an hour a day outside of their cell. Being walked back to your cell by 2 guards is probably the only human contact you get all day.
It's 24 hours into his stay, and the confinement is starting to get to the secretary. He's trying to pass the time by working out, but there's only so much of that you can do. Claustrophobia is setting in.
I felt like the cell was kind of squeezing down on me.
He is getting a taste of why this form of punishment has become so controversial. Not only can it be 3 times as expensive as regular incarceration, but critics call it legalized torture. We are social animals. We're built for interaction. Take that away, and critics say inmates can literally lose their minds. But many corrections officials say it's a necessary tool to control a dangerous population. As a prime example, they point to an inmate like Nathaniel Stein.
I don't think I've ever interviewed somebody before who's being restrained by 2 officers. Would you consider yourself a dangerous man?
No.
However, he is in solitary for viciously attacking a corrections officer.
Why did you do that?
That's a tough question. It was just a situation. I don't know why.
I do notice that when you are fessing up to something, you do smile.
I don't know why I do that.
The signal to me is that you don't feel badly about it.
Do I feel bad for the things I don't really feel bad for the things I've done, you know what I mean?
On the flip side, there are inmates like Freddie Munoz, who despite the severity of his crimes, has been a model inmate and renounced his gang affiliation. Munoz is now one of a select few handpicked to move out of solitary and into the general population of the prison as part of the secretary's plan to reduce the population in solitary.
To be able to go outside without being handcuffed and restrained every day, I think that would be very good for me.
It's the final morning for this undercover boss. Finally, the moment he's been waiting for. Release. After 48 hours on the inside, he's concluded solitary should be used, but sparingly and only for the most dangerous.
You're gonna have people who say any more than 30 days is torture. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't. There is a such thing as evil. And it's up to me to make sure that not only am I protecting other inmates from them, but I'm also protecting my staff from them.
Days later, Freddie Munoz, Daniel Herrera, and 6 other inmates are brought out of level 6 solitary in preparation for an eventual return to the general prison population. Here, for the first time in years, they'll actually be able to sit next to one another and have real human contact.
How does it feel?
It's good.
Sitting next to each other.
It's great. Good. This is living right here, finally.
These men, part of an experiment and part of a trend as New Mexico and the nation take its first steps away from this costly, controversial form of punishment. For Nightline, this is Dan Harris in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
This is a controversy you're going to hear a lot more about. Thanks, Dan.